We're going to talk about a few different functions here, starting off with the sum function. So sum is just SUM, and of course this basically allows us to add up certain numbers. So I've got a simple spreadsheet here that we've been working on, and let's say that I want to add up my quantity range. I know that I've got a variety of different numbers here for 5 different products, so if I want to add all these together, maybe on some sort of a totals row down here at the bottom, I can come over here to the very bottom and type in an equal sign, because remember I start all of my formulas with an equal sign, and then I'll type in the word sum, S-U-M, and you'll notice that as I start typing it actually starts to make suggestions for certain functions that I might want. So I'm just going to type in equals sum and then open my parentheses, and then it wants to know what numbers do you want to add together. And there's a couple of different ways that I can do this. One being that I could actually type in each of these cells individually, so I could say C2, C3, C4, and so on. But I know that's going to take a little bit of extra time if I've got, say, 10,000 rows here, right? So I certainly don't want to spend all my time typing in 10,000 cell addresses when I can spend that time much better on YouTube watching some other sort of videos. So let's go ahead and backspace here a little bit. So a couple of different ways that I can do this. I can actually come down here and select a range. So I can say select sum C2 colon C6, and this is how we actually reference a range in Excel. I start off with the very first cell in the range, and then I put a colon and then the last cell in the range. And Excel knows that I actually want everything in between. So here it's going to select the range of C2 all the way through C6. Then of course I need to close any sort of parentheses that I open. So I'll close that parentheses and press my enter key. And we can see that it actually sums that up for me as 168. Remember, the nice thing about using formulas whenever I'm working with data is they will automatically update those numbers. So if all of a sudden I get in a box of Slinkies and now I've got 40 of them in my warehouse, we say that it automatically updates the sum down here as being 188. Now, besides going that route, if I clear out the data in that cell, I could also come over here to say insert function. So I've got this little FX icon right over here to the left of my formula bar. So if I click on that, it will actually give me a list of functions that I can use. So when I open it by default, it should actually say select a category and leaves it as most recently used. But if I click on that drop down, there's all sorts of different functions in here. So I could use financial functions or date and time. Here, of course, I know that to add something together, that's more of a math type function, right? So I could select math and scroll down through here and look for something that might add these up. And of course I know that I've got the sum function, so if I click on that, it will actually tell me what the syntax is, and then it will actually show me exactly what that does. It gives me a very brief synopsis of what that particular function does. So I could say, okay, the sum function is what I want. I can double click on it or click on it and click on OK, and it will bring up the function arguments box. And of course now I can actually put in the range of information that I want. I can see by default it's automatically chosen C2 through C7 for me. And I could say, well, I really don't have any data in C7, so I want to change that to C6, so I could manually type that change in here. Or I could actually click on this little box over here to the right, and that kind of makes the box a little bit smaller, move it out of my way over here, select the range that I want, and of course it's showing me that it's trying to do C2 through C7 plus C2 through C6. So maybe I'll delete everything in that box and reselect exactly what I want. And then I'll click on that little box over here on the right again. Drag the box back up here, and we can see that it's supposed to be adding up C2 through C6. It will even give me a preview of what that number is down here at the kind of middle of the box. And then I'll click on OK. And we can see that it adds it up that way as well. Now there's another nice function in Excel as well. If I don't feel like typing that really long string of equals sum and open those parentheses, I've got this little auto sum feature over here. So this will actually automatically type in the equals sum. It'll type in your parentheses and automatically highlight the range that it thinks you might want. It looks above that box and says, okay, well there's a whole bunch of numbers up here, so they're probably wanting to add those up. So of course by default it's choosing all the cells here all the way through C7. If I want to change that to C6, I can just make that quick change in here and press my enter key, and it will add all those cells up. Now, besides the sum function, there's a few other functions that we might want to use instead. So just to kind of give you an example of some of these, so I've got an average, so I can type in equals. And again, as I start typing, you'll notice that it starts to make some suggestions here. So I can choose my average function. And then, of course, I need to select that range. So I'll go through here and select C2 through C6, close the parentheses, and press Enter. We can say that the average number of products that I have on hand for any of these products is 37.6. Now, just like that auto sum feature, again, it kind of looks like this little E over here. If you've got a little wider resolution, I'm displaying on a projector right now for class, but if I was using a little bit wider screen or a little better resolution like I normally do, it would actually say auto sum over here to the side. But if I click on the drop down here, you'll notice that I can actually choose some of the other functions automatically as well. So if I wanted to do an average, I could choose that. If I want to choose the count numbers, we have a count function, which will actually show the number of cells that have numbers in them. So of course here it's saying we found 5 cells that have numbers in them. I could also use a maximum if I wanted to find out what the maximum number of any of these products is that I have in my warehouse. I could choose the max function. And of course we can see that right now it's 50. But of course if I get a large box of silly string in and now all of a sudden I've got 70 cans of silly string, it automatically updates the results of that function to show me 70. And likewise I could also use the min function here to show me the minimum number that I have of anything, and it's showing the minimum is 30. I can look up here and verify that yes, the minimum number that I have up there is 30. So that's our sum function, the average, min, max, and count. Besides the count, there is actually one more function that we'll talk about, and that's the count A function. Because count only actually works with numbers. So remember I said when I typed that in, or when we chose that count function with the quantities here, that it was counting the cells that had numbers in them? Well, what if I don't have any numbers on the spreadsheet? Maybe I'm just keeping track of alphabetic type data. So if I do equals count and then choose my range here of B2 through B6, I know I have 0 cells in there that are numbers, right? Well, I can actually change that to a count A function. And count A basically says if there's anything in the cell, even if it's just letters, go ahead and count it. So count A on those will show me B2 through B6. So I might use count A for that one, and then I'll use count for this range for my quantity. And of course it matches up. Now, one thing to keep in mind is as I'm looking at these numbers, if I'm using the count function, 0 is still a number. So if I have 0 of the silly string in stock, it's still counting that as a number using my count function. If I actually wanted to get rid of that, then I would have to actually delete the 0. Okay, so that is our sum functions and maximum, minimums, average, count, and count A. So if you'd like to try this on your own, feel free. And if you've got any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions you've got.
Thanks for watching. Please be sure to check out some of the other videos on this channel.